Alright, so hopefully by now you're very familiar with the comic book series called Saga. Everybody's talking about it. And despite what happened in issue 29 that I'm still trying to get over, it's been a fantastic ride, but I still want it to end. And not because it's been flagging or the quality has gone downhill, but because I enjoy stories that have a beginning, middle, and end. A lot of comic series seem to be a victim of their own success. The Walking Dead is a case in point. When it first started out, it was grim and brutal, and it was just jaw-droppingly good. Each story arc was even better than the last, and they kept upping the stakes. This was a bleak world where the zombies were the least of these people's problems. Then by about issue 100, when they did the stunt kill, and then there was that crossover with Hyundai of all things, and he was probably juggling all this stuff with the TV show, I just pretty well hit peak zombie and had enough checked out of the comic series entirely. You know, people have told me it's still really, really good and it's found its footing. And maybe I'm just being a hipster douche, just lamenting about the fact when I used to read it back when it was still in the single digits. I mean, I still remember when Eastman and Laird were doing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in black and white before they completely sold out. Anyway, I digress. Back to Saga. Pick up volumes 1 or 2 if you haven't already. They're probably even available at your library by now. Now, the creative team behind Saga isn't one to rest on their laurels, and they're working on some pretty cool things, even though you may not have heard about it. Fiona Staples lent her considerable talents to the Archie reboot, being written by Mark Waid, he of Captain America and the equally awesome graphic novel Kingdom Come fame. I mean, if you've read Saga, you know how absolutely fantastic Fiona Staples is as an illustrator. But she's rendering alien races, whether it's the Stock, or Goose, or Prince Robot. But you tend to get distracted by that. I'm blown away by the rendering that she does of these very familiar characters. Characters that we have seen done in a very specific way. She freshens them up, and she is clearly a master of expression. This thing is absolutely beautiful to look at. Now, I'm a sucker for great art, but the story as well has been very compelling, and I'm along for the ride. I realize I've basically been fooled somehow into reading a 4-color adaptation of 90210, but I'm really enjoying it. And maybe there's a lot of leeway I'm given because of my love of Archie. Sadly, Fiona Staples is only on until issue 3 before she hands the illustrating duties off. Fiona Staples is a Canadian, and Brian K. Vaughan has a long history of working well with Canadians. His collaborator Pia Guerrera with Why the Last Man was Canadian, Adrian Elphonie with The Runaways was Canadian, and his latest, Steve Skroce, who is probably best known as the storyboarders for the Wachowskis, starting back with The Matrix. Actually, they met during the screening of Jupiter Ascending and decided to collaborate on this comic called We Stand on Guard. We're nearly 100 years into the future when the White House is decimated by a terrorist attack. The Americans are quick to retaliate and decide to rain missiles down on Ottawa, destroying it. Fast forward a few more years and America has pretty well occupied all of Canada. I mean, they're using frickin' giant Jaegers to decimate resistance. Mind you, there are pockets of resistance way up in the Northwest Territories, and we're introduced to a band of guerrilla warriors known as the 2-4. Now, I don't know how much of this Canadiana is lost on American readers. There's some easy hits. There's the Tim Hortons in the background as Ottawa is getting decimated by a missile strike. And I like to see that Gil Adamson's The Outlander still being read nearly a century on. Other things perhaps are a little bit more oblique. The little shtick about Superman in issue number 1 harkens back to heritage moments, things that were interspersed throughout our Saturday morning cartoons in the 80s. There was a great little segment about Superman and him being a Canadian invention. It will be heroic if they can somehow introduce the idea of I smell burnt toast, which only Canadians who grew up in the 80s will even recognize. And in issue 2, in the background, you see a little TV screen showing The Littlest Robo, which is also a tip of the hat to The Littlest Hobo, a Canadian series, which is basically the Hulk, except the Hulk is a dog that wanders from town to town helping citizens. Yeah, TV in Canada wasn't exactly great. Issue 3 gets pretty frickin' dark, and the Americans do not come off well. Still, I'm enjoying the series, and I'm looking forward to all these little Canadian tidbits. I don't know what else they should be adding. Poutine, double-double, ketchup chips, hoser, beachcombers, classic CanCon, Kim Mitchell, Parachute Club, Honeymoon Suite, Haywire. I'm a little sad this is only a 6-issue run, but like I said earlier, I like stories with a beginning, a middle, and an end. Anyway, it's nice to jump into a self-contained world without having to learn an entire storied back history. I mean, with SpiderMan, You have to make sure that it's Peter Parker, not to be confused with Kane Parker, who is now the Scarlet Spider working out of Houston, or Ben Reilly, the other clone that actually died. Now this Peter Parker is no longer married to Mary Jane because he made a deal with Mephisto to save the life of Aunt May, but now is working alongside Miles Morales, who's the ultimate Spider-Man, and for a time his mind was occupied by that of Doc Ock, who's running around as Peter Parker and Spider-Man. And now he's faced with Gwen Stacy in an alternate universe who is known as Spider-Gwen, who's actually fought Peter Parker, who is that universe's Lizard. See what I mean? It's just crazy. Anyway, I'm always looking for comic recommendations. What have you guys been reading lately? Let me know in the comments below.